Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the incredibly fascinating sci-fi universe of a story called The Apathy Bureau. We're going to unpack some seriously profound philosophical questions about consciousness, emotion, and societal control. It is a gripping narrative, and it really makes you stop and question what it actually means to feel something.
Picture this. You're waking up, but instead of an annoying alarm clock buzzing on your nightstand, you are jolted awake by an injected cascade of synthetic adrenaline. The system is perfectly calibrated to hit you with exactly 7.3 units of morning anxiety, just enough to constitute legal consciousness, but, not quite enough to violate any early hour agitation protocols.
So our main guy, an agent named Dex, actually has to physically perform this morning attestation every single day just to legally prove he's conscious. Because in this universe, feeling is mandatory. And it's strictly monitored by neural readers built right into the walls. You literally have to prove you are an emotional being just to earn your right to exist.
But not everybody plays along. Take this chilling quote from an interrogated rebel. It really sets up the core conflict we're looking at today. What actually happens when people wake up and realize the system just needs their emotional energy to survive? They realize they're basically just generating data, a constant emotional currency keeping society running. And some of them, they just flat out refuse to be batteries anymore.
Which brings us to part 1, the affective economy.
Let's unpack how this society actually operates. In what the story calls the affective economy, everybody's emotional baseline is tracked 24/7. It's wild. You actually get rewarded for productive frustration, like getting riled up at enemies of the state, and you get punished for unapproved joy. Even nostalgia is a crime, classified as a gateway to emotional instability. It's a world where fairness means absolute equality of deprivation.
Enter Dex. He's this loyal, gray-suited bureau agent, and his current mission is tracking down an untraceable underground cell. Now, these rebels aren't just good at hiding. They somehow manage to produce a neural baseline of absolute zero. They are completely quiet on the affective grid. And to a bureau that literally relies on monitoring emotions, a baseline of zero shouldn't even be biologically possible. That leads us right into part 2, the underground silence. To infiltrate this group, Dex gets orders to intentionally crash his own emotional baseline. He goes completely off-grid and joins the exact antithesis of the Bureau, a faction known as the Silence. It's an underground community run by a guy named Marcus. Now, Marcus preaches that emotion is just a tool for control, that the system makes you feel things specifically so it can manage you. In the Silence, they use chemical inhibitors and intense meditation to achieve total emotional clarity.
As Dex's baseline tanks all the way down to 2.1, something totally unexpected happens. He doesn't die, he doesn't lose his mind. Actually, for the very first time in his life, he clearly sees the oppressive architecture of his own world. Without all those manufactured emotions constantly narrating his experience, the manipulative design of the Bureau's gray buildings, the strictly timed coffee lines, all the uniform rules, it all just becomes incredibly obvious. But as Dex settles into this new reality, he meets a disillusioned member named Oren, who drops a pretty heavy truth bomb. Oren realizes that by erasing all their emotions just to escape the Bureau, they've kind of just built themselves a brand new, empty cage. As he puts it, "I'm imprisoned by my own choices." They aren't truly free, they've simply deliberately destroyed their own capacity to care about anything.
I want you to really think about that for a second. Even in our own modern world, with all our talk about emotional performance, burnout, and productivity, is simply turning off our feelings actually a form of liberation? Or is creating a mandatory state of total numbness just the exact same thing as the Bureau's mandatory state of feeling, just flipped upside down?
And that philosophical deadlock brings us to part 3, a third way, called modulation.
This whole standoff gets completely shaken up by the arrival of a new defector named Tess. She introduces this radical new concept to the underground called the modulation. Tess challenges the community to keep their profound mental clarity, but without killing off their fundamental human capacity to care. Her argument, you should experience emotion as information to process, not as a direct command that dictates your behavior. It's a brilliant clash of ideologies. You've got the Bureau, controlling people through mandatory feeling. Then you've got the Silence, trying to escape through absolute numbness. But Tess and the modulation, they are arguing for genuine, conscious choice. You can feel fear, sure, but you can absolutely choose the courageous action anyway. You can feel anger, but intentionally respond with compassion. Well, Marcus is absolutely terrified of this messy middle ground. So what does he do? He reacts exactly like the oppressive bureau he just escaped from. He treats Tess's questions as a dangerous corruption. Getting totally defensive, he triggers a purification protocol, basically fracturing the whole community and exiling anyone who practices the modulation. It's a stark reminder that extreme resistance, when it gets dogmatic, can turn into its own form of tyranny really, really fast.
Which brings us to our final act, Part 4, the illusion of choice.
Dex and Tess head back into the city, and Tess drops a powerful manifesto detailing exactly what it's like to escape emotional control. The result is instant. Boom! A massive spike hitting a 20% crisis rate right there in Sector 19. People are reading her words, they're waking up, and they are voluntarily choosing to stop being batteries for the state.
Things escalate into a full-blown existential threat for the government in no time. Think about it. 30 years of careful, meticulous emotional engineering, mildly annoyed by 7 years of quiet rebellion, is suddenly just blown wide open by one manifesto. Within 48 hours, the Bureau slams down a Protocol 7 lockdown. We're talking mass surveillance, total communications blackouts, and deploying specialized neural readers just to hunt down anyone infected by these new ideas.
It all comes down to this one crucial final meeting. The Bureau itself is actually fracturing. A guy named Dr. Mikhail offers Dex a backdoor deal. Take your community into the shadows, practice the modulation completely invisibly, and you get to live. But if you refuse, Director Carlisle is going to drop Protocol 12, which means the absolute, unyielding destruction of every single person involved in the resistance.
Dex and Tess are staring down an impossible choice here. Do they accept a compromise that keeps them alive but renders them completely invisible? Or do they risk total annihilation just to keep the truth in the public eye? It really leaves us wondering, if you are forced to choose between mandatory emotional performance, absolute numbness, or the incredibly dangerous messiness of true freedom, what would you choose? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I definitely challenge you to think about how you're processing your own emotional baseline today. Catch you next time.